I'm Lindsay, and welcome to the Intuitive Psychologist podcast. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I've been in the mental health field for over 15 years. During my spiritual awakening, I've realized that psychology is really missing the mark. I believe that traditional therapy combined with spirituality can actually lead to long-term healing and growth. And I've actually had the luxury of seeing this happen within my own private practice, where I've tried to incorporate the two together. My intention for this podcast is to discuss my opinions about spirituality and therapy, and I like to do it in a fun way. My hope is that I'll inspire other people to explore different ways to improve their lives. But I'd also like to normalize what many people have been going through or are currently going through, so that you can know that you're not alone and that you're not crazy. And maybe along the way I can inspire a few therapists along the way to actually think outside the box and to offer their own version of intuitive healing. If this is interesting to you, then join me on this journey as we try to have fun and explore an informal way to bridge the gap between psychology and spirituality. Have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's the way I'm making my podcast right now. And it's free. They have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. And Anchor is going to distribute your podcast to all the major important places you would ever want, like Spotify and Apple and so many more places. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. I love it. It's so simple. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome back, friends. And this is the second edition of this week's episode about attachment, which is part of a little bit of a series that I'm doing right now in reference to attachment styles, relationships, sex, and overall healing in all these different areas. So if you haven't listened to part one, I would recommend going back and listening to how the different attachment styles are formed in childhood, because today we're going to talk about adult attachment styles, and to have that little bit of background knowledge and to know that there's nothing wrong with needing to be attached to a loved one, whether it is a parental figure or what we're going to talk about now, which is relationships, that attachments are normal and necessary. And today, or this episode, is going to be about going over the different attachment styles in adulthood, what that looks like, and how to figure out which one you are. And then I'll talk a little bit about some examples, some real-life examples about these different types of attachment. So let's start with the healthy one, which is a secure attachment. This one, you can sort of ask yourself these questions as I'm going through them to say whether or not you think that you are secure, anxious, or avoidant. Those are the three main types of adult attachment according to Amir Levine and, of course I don't remember the female's name. As a female, I am very embarrassed by this. Hold on one second. So this book is called Attached by, Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, and they are both in the mental health field, and they wrote a really good book about adult attachment styles and relationships and how it plays out. And so the majority of this information is being pulled from this book, but it very much goes in line with the research and training that I received in my graduate program. So I really do believe that this is good stuff. If you get the book yourself, they have quizzes in there to see which, you can ask yourself all these different questions, and it will tell you exactly which attachment style you are. And then there's also a quiz in there to find out which attachment style your partner is. And I'm just sort of going through like the Cliff Notes version and just the highlights of sort of what the book talks about. But just know that these are not my personal concepts, but I might interject my opinions or my own stories to sort of liven it up a little bit. Okay, so secure attachment, that's the one. Obviously, it sounds the way it should be. It is the healthiest of the attachment styles. I believe secure attachment is about 50% of adults. And these are a lot of the characteristics. So see if you feel like this relates to you or not. You can also start asking yourself about your partner, but as the book sort of talks about, it's harder to know sort of the internal motivations about your partner as compared to like checking out their behaviors. And so mostly ask this for yourself, but you can also keep your partners in mind. Okay, so are you generally comfortable in being able to depend on your partner? Do you generally feel satisfied in the majority of your relationships? Do you feel like you have no need to act out? So playing games like, oh, I need to make them wait to like not come on too strong, or I will, if I say this, then I know that they will reach out to me and respond or something like that. So do you feel the need to act out or play games? Overall, is it easy for you to express your needs and your wants to your partners? And I would also say not only is it that you are able to say it, like you know what your needs are and you will tell your partner, but do you tell it to them in an effective way that helps them to understand what your needs and wants are? Because there are ineffective ways to like yell or demand, but I would say ease in the ability to let your partner know what your needs and wants are. Do you overall believe that people are honest and generally good? Are you able to share your personal feelings and thoughts with your partner? So in essence, can you become intimate, share maybe difficult life problems, challenging things that have happened in your upbringing or in other relationships? Are you usually seen as somebody that may be a little boring? Mainly boring because you don't get into a lot of conflicts. You don't play games. You're pretty straightforward, straight-laced. I'm not straight-laced as in like straight edge, as in you don't do anything fun, but like it's just not that necessarily like, whoo, fireworks, like excitement, because, some people get drawn to the chaos of relationships. So you may be seen sometimes as boring. And then finally, if the relationship does end, obviously you feel hurt for a bit, but you find yourself able to get over it with some time. And secure people are generally described as warm and loving and able to become intimate with a partner without a lot of worrying. They can effectively communicate their needs, feelings, and wants to their partner. And the biggest thing is that they're able to read emotional cues of a partner. So think about the first part of this series with the attachment part. Really, the secure attachment is pretty much that this adult has been able to mimic what their secure parent provided to them as they were growing up. So if your partner has a bad day, are you able to pick up on that, put your needs to the side to say, hey, I'm so sorry you had a bad day. Let me cook dinner tonight instead of you. Take your shoes off, go relax. I'm so sorry. Let me let me give you a massage tonight and help you to feel better. Like, I'm so sorry, I love you. Fuck work, fuck all your coworkers, like whatever, right? Are they attuned? Can they tell a change in your mood? And it doesn't have to necessarily mean that they always can get it, but maybe they notice that you've got a frown on your face and you're saying, no, everything's fine. And they're like, I don't know, something seems off. Like, I don't think that you're okay. Can you talk to me about what's going on? And if they say, you know what, you're right. I've been really down about myself. I feel like I've gained weight and I feel like I'm not attractive. And they say to you, oh no, you look gorgeous. I haven't noticed any weight change, or you look more beautiful now than ever, or what have you, right? They can share vulnerabilities about themselves, what makes them not perfect. And they can attune to your needs and your wants and your desires. And yes, at times, two securely attached people can seemingly on the outside look boring, but they're not boring people. It's just that the relationship is not like intense, hot, passionate lovemaking and then intense, hot fighting and anger and aggression, right? Because some people get excited about the intense fighting because then it leads to intense sex. And I will say that secure with a sex person, sex with a secure person can be very passionate and very arousing and very lustful. So it's just that they can often be described as maybe being boring. Now, let's get into the anxiously attached. And this one I might spend a little bit more time on because I actually identify mostly as anxious in my attachment styles. When we think about how the anxious person is developed anxiously attached, not just anxiety. It can overlap, but it isn't necessarily a one-to-one ratio that anxious people are anxiously attached, or that anxious attachments mean that you feel anxiety a lot. But the overarching reason that somebody will develop an anxious attachment style is because in childhood it was very confusing that sometimes their primary caregiver was attuned and gave affection, and at other times they were unavailable, neglectful, emotionally, that kind of thing. So that is who I identify with. So overall characteristics is that you can sort of ask yourself is, do you often worry that your partner won't love you, or that they don't love you, or that they're going to stop loving you soon? Especially thinking something like, well, if they get to know me a little bit better, they're definitely not going to love me. When it comes to becoming attached to your partner, do you find that that happens quickly? Right? Maybe relationships develop very fast for you. Doesn't have to take very long for you to want to be involved, become a couple, maybe even move in together very fast. Are you able to pick up on changes in their mood and changes in their behaviors easily? So, for instance, your partner comes home, they appear sad and depressed, and you notice it right away, right? Maybe it's glaring to you and to everyone else. They're like, oh no, your partner's fine, there's nothing. And you're like, oh no, I can tell that there's something definitely wrong because they did X, Y, and Z. And normally they do A, B, and C. And people are like, dude, calm down. And you're like, no, something's up. Do you feel empty or anxious when you're not in a relationship? Do you find that if you're not in a relationship that you are preoccupied with getting into a relationship, or feeling lonely, or inadequate and that's why you're not in a relationship? If your partner is away, are you worried that they're going to fall in love with somebody else very easily? Do you change your own needs and wants so that you can try to satisfy your partner and their needs? So like, let's say they like to watch football and you don't, but now Sunday night football or Monday night football or whatever fucking football shit, now you're like their biggest cheerleader and you're making football shaped cakes to like celebrate football. And then when you're not in that relationship with them anymore, if you're with a partner that doesn't like football, you're like, I never liked football. Do you act impulsively or say things that you later regret when you feel triggered or when this anxiety sort of stirs up for you? If you notice that your partner checks out somebody else, do you feel depressed, angry, and hurt by them checking somebody else out? And then if your partner is cold and distant, do you just pretty much assume that it's your fault that you have done something wrong? So anxiously attached people, this is sort of how they've been described overall. They easily become close to their partners, and they have a big capacity to become intimate, emotionally intimate, but you can also become physically intimate as well. They fear that they don't, they fear that their partners don't want to be as close to them as the anxiously attached person does. A lot of their emotional energy is used up in thinking about relationships. This is both when they're in the relationship and when they're out of it. They can tell quickly and accurately when small changes in mood and behavior occur. But the problem with these folks is that they often will take it too personally. And this is especially true if they don't take a few moments after sort of picking up on this change of behavior to think it through, to say, well, maybe there are some other reasons why this person's mood or behavior have changed that have nothing to do with you. And then when those things occur, that's often when somebody will act out and say things or do things before they think. These people, the anxiously attached people, can actually make really wonderful partners when they're in a relationship with a securely attached person, because a securely attached person will be attentive, they will be loving and nurturing, and they can actually calm a lot of their anxieties and worries down, which is very wonderful. And I will talk later about how to more tangible things as to how to go from an anxiously attached person to a securely attached person, which is possible. It's great. There is hope for us out there. Woohoo! Okay, and then we've got avoidant attachment. Now, quick little side note is that for this book, they do only have the 3 main attachment styles, whereas most of the research in childhood attachment has 4, sometimes more attachment styles. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think that they've pretty much hit the nail on the head with everything as it relates to adult attachment. So no big issues here. So for avoidant attachment styles, ask yourself if any of this relates to you. Do you value independence over being in a relationship or having a partnership? Do you keep your private thoughts and feelings to yourself more than not in a relationship? Do you feel like you cannot depend on your partner? Do you get angry or annoyed with your partner and you don't really understand why? Do you generally prefer casual sex with many partners? if a partner gets too close, does it make you feel uncomfortable or want to push them away? Especially the case when that partner wants you to be more intimate with them. Do you ever find that you miss your partner when you two are apart from each other, but as soon as you guys get together, you kind of have this desire to escape or run away or avoid or stop plans with them? You don't like others to be dependent on them. And if the avoidant attachment style person sees that their partner is checking out somebody else, they actually are kind of happy and relieved because they go, oh, cool, they actually aren't trying to be that exclusive or have that deep of a relationship. So it's kind of a relief to them, which to me, I was like, how? But anyway. So some ways in which avoidant attachment style people are described is they value independence and autonomy over intimate relationships. They don't share a lot of information with their partners, so they keep them at an arm's length. They don't really worry about the relationship as a whole or even about being rejected by their partner. Many see them as being emotionally distant in relationships. They can become very sensitive to any signs of any sort of control. And the interesting thing is you would think an avoidant person doesn't want relationships, but they actually do want to be close with a partner. But once that closeness occurs, they become very uncomfortable. And this can show up sort of in a way of like, they will constantly be searching for the perfect one and then reject. And that's just sort of a way for them to avoid any sort of real intimacy with that person. So the main key features to the adult attachment style are these two features. One is how comfortable is the person with intimacy and closeness? Conversely on this is, do they try to actually avoid intimacy? And then the second paradigm is, what's the level of anxiety that they have over feeling love and attentiveness from their partner, and are they generally preoccupied with the relationship? So I wanted to give some real tangible stories to sort of highlight what these relationship or attachment styles in adulthood can look like. And so when I realized that my husband was the one, I was just getting out of a year-long relationship with a guy who I now realize has the avoidant attachment. I think he had a tinge of anxious attachment too, which there is a rare form of attachment, and the rare one is anxious and avoidant. So it's possible that he would have been more in the anxious avoidant category. However, his behavior was way more avoidant, and I think he fits more into that more than anything. But so this guy we'll just go with mostly avoidant. Let me just tell you about him first, and then I will tell you about the contrast between him and my husband. So for him, we were dating for about a year off and on, and I was, deep into my late 20s, thinking I have done all of this hard work on loving myself and doing all the hard work to see my piece of the puzzle and to finally get relationships right. And here I was, yet again, not getting relationships right? right? So don't feel bad. It takes a while to sort of figure it out, especially if you have very complicated childhood and relationship dynamics moving forward. So I met him, and at first it was very hot. It was very intense. It was very, I thought intimate. I later realized it wasn't, but I thought that it was very intimate very fast. We moved very fast. He said a lot of things that made me feel like, ooh, he's really into me. But I should have known that if on the first date he was talking about wanting to have children with me and that we would have a band and our children would play in the band and kind of like, I don't know, maybe was he watching too much of the Partridge Family and stealing from that, and I just was too dumbfounded to realize like, oh no, he's just stealing from like 80s and 70s TV shows that were popular. Anyway, we hit it off. It was quite seemingly intimate. I think that there was I definitely know that there were some flavors of narcissism that I didn't pick up on because I was charmed. I was legitimately charmed into believing that this guy was super into me. And I'm not saying that he didn't care about me because I don't believe that. But he charmed my pants off and I believed it. And so for a year, we dated on and off. And you're saying, well, how did you guys end up being on and off? So we were together for, say, like 2 or 3 months, maybe. The timeline I really don't remember because this is a considerable amount of time now. And my memory kind of just sucks balls. Anyway, so let's just pretend it was 2 to 3 months later. And I think the first time he broke up with me was... we went to like a Christmas party at his company's place, and we were there, and he introduced me to like 2 or 3 guys that he worked with, and he just said their names, not like what their positions were at the company or anything like that. And so when he introduced this one guy, actually all of them, I said, "Hi, nice to meet you, and what do you do at this company?" Because I'm trying to make small talk. And apparently one of them was his boss. I didn't know. And he's like, "Oh, this is my boss." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Wow, that's so awesome." Not a big deal. And I believe he acted a little weird the rest of the night. And then I got tired and was ready to go to bed, and he wanted to go and meet his friends out afterwards from work and catch up. And I was like, by all means, go have fun. I'm just going to go back to your apartment. I'm going to go to bed. And he didn't come home till very late, right? Because I'm anxiously attached. So I'm very aware of these things. And the next morning, he's acting distant and cold. Again, I'm picking up on every little thing that's like, wait. If this is, Sunday morning and normally we're making breakfast together and chit-chatting and I'm asking him how the night was and he's giving me short answers, something the fuck is up. And I got that pit in my stomach, like something wasn't right. And then a few hours later, he says to me that he needs to break up with me, because he was embarrassed that I didn't know who his boss was. And it's not like he worked for some fancy thing where it was like Mark Zuckerberg and I didn't know who the fuck Mark Zuckerberg was. So I really didn't do anything wrong. And it's not like I was an asshole to him or said anything inappropriate. I just introduced myself and said, "And what do you do here?" Right? Or what do you do for the company? Or what's your position at the company? Something to that effect. So it was real fucked up shit. Blindsided the fuck out of me because I thought we were good as gold. I thought we were, working towards eventually moving in together and then, thinking we would be married at some point and all these things, and blindsided. And so I grabbed up my things and I drove back, and I was crying my eyes out, and I called my therapist, and lucky enough for me that my therapist actually picked up the phone and talked to me over the phone for a little bit of time, and it was a good week and a half, I want to say. I tried to give him his space, and I did some spiritual things where I tried to call on his higher self, like I did a meditation, and my higher self met with his higher self to be like, I'm so sorry, what did I do? How can I fix this? Blah, blah, blah. And I want to say after a week and a half, I might have reached out to him. I don't know, because this happens a few more times. He may have reached out to me first. Whatever. And we met back up, and we had like a dinner or something to sort of catch up and sort of talk about what had happened. And the entire time he pretty much just talked about how miserable he was, and like no real good reason as to what had happened, but just how awful it was for him to have broken up with me. I can't believe I was so foolish then. Anyway, so then we were back together, and then a month later, he acts funny again, out of the blue. Everything's fine, and then out of the blue, he breaks up with me. This time it's, you have a bleeding disorder, and I don't want our kids to end up having a bleeding disorder. And so I try to explain to him, I understand, but like my nephew, he's fine. He's like, my fucking dogs are driving me nuts right now. And I was like, no, don't bring them up. And then I feel bad because I just want to be with them and don't want them to be just alone and lonely. And right now they're just acting fucking... My older dog, I think it's very uncomfortable for him to lay down, so he just paces. And then my little one's like, well, I'm on mom's lap, so you can't be over here. Yeah. And then she nips at him to be like, bitch, I'm in charge, even though she's little. She's like a fifth of his size and young, but she's the alpha in this relationship, and he is the beta. Anyway, so yes, bleeding disorder, I tell him, well, this really only affects males, and my nephew is fine, and this is all the current research, and, life expectancy is great, and there's very little complications. They have very good lives. Like, there's, like, whatever, right? And then we break up, and I want to say this time it's a little bit longer. I'm distraught yet again because I'm blindsided. We get back together, then next time he breaks up with me, which is out of the blue, and he says this time is because I have like $680,000 in student loan debt. Yeah, I just said that. I may have said that before, but my God. Anyway, and I was like, but this isn't your debt. When we get married, it's not your debt. No matter what happens to me, it's never your debt. It will never affect us. And then we broke up, and so then because we were broken up, I was preoccupied with proving him wrong, right? So that I could get him back. And so I went to the lender, like a home lender, and talked to a banker and all this stuff. Like, at what point does this ever affect me? If I get married, will it ever affect them? And they're like, no, it's your debt. You will die with it. When you die, it is your debt done. Like, death and paying it off are the only two ways to get rid of it. You can't just escape it. You can't file bankruptcy, any of this stuff. And so I did all that. I was preoccupied with making the relationship work, even though he was not. And we get back together. It's just on and off and on and off. And the whole time I was distraught and all in my feelings. And every time we got back together, it was all about how he was distraught, even though he was the one breaking my heart every time. And I kept going back. And I finally, one day, after some long, hard thoughts and what have you, and some assistance from some spiritual spiritual folks, I realized that it was time for me to finally say goodbye, that I was done with this relationship that was not working for me. And so I said goodbye to him. And then shortly thereafter, which I'm pretty sure I've told you guys the story before, is that shortly thereafter, inadvertently, I had met my husband. And, okay, hold on one second because I'm about to go off on my dog. Because he likes to step on everything. You can probably hear him. He likes to sit on everything. Even, no matter where I put it, he's just like, nope. If it's inappropriate, I shall sit, right? I should do one of those, dog shaming calendars, right? Where they take pictures of their dogs doing just shameful shit. But it would have to be like okay. Yep. Do you hear that? That's him still doing it. Okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to live. I'm going to live because he's back. I know. And I love him. I love him dearly. But he's driving me bonkers. He's driving me bonkers. Okay, guys. Anyway, let's keep it moving. So, cut to relationship with my husband. He and I took a little break early in the relationship, and I ended up, the ex-boyfriend was contacting me, and I was like, I'm good. No, actually, I think I was just ignoring him. I was like, I appreciate the kind words because he was trying to get back together with me yet again. And I was like, no, I'm good. And then my husband and I took a small break because, we both wanted two totally different things in the relationship. And I was like, what's the point of us doing this relationship if we're just going to break up anyway? And so in that time, I did end up going out to dinner with my ex. And it was the same old shit, different day. And all he did was talk about how distraught he's been without me and his life is so good with me. Never once like, I'm sorry for what I did, or how are you, or what have you even been doing since we broke up? Nothing. It was all about him the entire time. Talk about energy vampire. And I sat there and I was like, what are you doing, girl? What are you doing? That is not how it felt with this guy that you just started seeing. But I let it be because I was like, no, I like talking to him. This is my husband I'm talking about. I enjoyed talking to him, but, it's not meant to be for him and I. And not that I was going to get back together with my ex, so don't get me tangled or twisted. I went on a date and or a dinner get together, and we talked. Mainly he talked, and I listened yet again for like an hour or two. And then it was time for me to go, and I think he kissed me on the cheek, and that was it. And that was it. And I didn't plan to see him again. But he texted or called, I want to say like the next day, and I had a long day at work. Mind you, I'm still talking to my husband every day because I just loved spending time with him. I enjoyed his company. We had so much in common. And so I just wanted to hear his voice every day and just see how he was doing. And then this ex would be the one that would call me or text me and be like, I need to talk to you. And I'd be like, I had a really long day at my internship and I am tired and I don't want to talk. And I said the same thing to both my husband and the ex. My husband, who's securely attached, said, okay, I totally get it. Feel free to reach out to me whenever you want, if tomorrow morning or not, whatever. I'm here if you ever want to talk. I said, okay, cool, thank you. Literally didn't talk to him for the rest of the night because I really just wanted to go to fucking bed. But the ex was hounding me, please, I really need to talk to you. I need you so bad, I need to talk to you. And I was like, no, I don't want to. I'm tired. I need to take care of me. And he's like, I promise it'll only be 5 minutes. And I fell for it. That was the last time I fell for it. And he talked my ear off. And it was all about him and how he was feeling, blah, blah, blah. And I got off of that call, which was way more than 5 minutes, angry. angry. Angry at myself for falling for it, and angry at him that he manipulated me. Such narcissism that it was all about him, that my needs, my wants, my desires, which I clearly expressed numerous times, were trampled over because his emotional need in that moment was greater. So this is where I do think a little bit of that anxious attachment style is actually applicable to him. But for him, anyway, at that moment, I realized it was a wake-up call for me, because I wanted to talk to my husband, and I enjoyed our conversations, and he always respected my boundaries. And at that moment, I was really needing to learn how to have boundaries in romantic relationships. And it was the most glaring example of how my boundaries were being exploited by this ex, and how my boundaries were being honored by my husband. So, after that, I was done. I was done, and I was so happy to be done. And the thing with this ex is, in the year that we were together, he never really shared very intimate details about his life, about his childhood, about his upbringing. And whenever things started to get intimate emotionally, or started to talk about vulnerable topics about his life, it just stayed superficial. Or I feel like those were the moments where then that's when he canned me, is things were getting a little too intimate. We were getting too close to actually moving in together, and then it would be, "You're canned." Okay, awesome, because that's fun. Not. So when it comes to me being anxious, these are some of the things that I have done or felt, what have you. Things that I notice. I can notice when somebody starts texting me less frequently. If the tone of voice changes, I can always, and I've always been able to tell when my husband's upset. And now he's starting to get to the point where we've been together for so long now, he definitely can read my room and know when I'm upset. So it's kind of nice to see that he's really picked up, and he will call my ass out. What was it, last night or something, I got grumpy with him, and he's like, "Oh no, I knew you were grumpy with me. I could tell by the way you were talking to me and the behaviors that you were doing." And I was like, "Yeah, I was really grumpy." But I mean, we just have this open relationship, so we just talk about things. It's not a big deal. But if I were to say something like, "No, I'm fine," or "It's fine," or "It's nothing," it's like, "Oh, no. So now we call each other out, and we're like, "Calling your bullshit. Let's talk. If you don't want to talk right now, that's fine, but just know we need to talk." So when I get anxious, it's hard for me to let him have that space if he needs it, to sort of get his thoughts together. A week ago, I knew something was different with him, that he was upset, and I was pretty sure it was with me, that I had done something or I'd hurt him in some way. And so I asked him 3 or 4 times, because I'm anxiously attached, "You sure you're okay? Are you, because you're acting weird, or you're doing something weird, or you just seem distant, you seem cold." And so I'll pester him multiple times, asking him over and over again, and he's like, "I'm fine." And so I've learned to respect that if he's not ready to talk, that we are secure enough in our relationship now that I know he will come talk to me. Early in the relationship, the first couple of years, maybe not so much. He wouldn't necessarily talk to me, but we've just developed such good communication now that I know he will talk to me if there's a problem. And if there legitimately isn't a problem, there legitimately isn't a problem. So I can just fucking calm my anxiety down a bit. I can tell if somebody's not as warm, not only in just their behavior, but also their physical, their energy, right? The energy that they exude, it's just so weird. You can't really put it into words, but I can feel when he is off. Maybe I'm noticing that he's not as complimentary towards the way I look, or the things that I do that normally he would say, great job at this. And I'm like, fuck, does he think that I'm not pretty, or does he think that I've gained weight, or does he just not find me attractive anymore? So the one kind of cool thing, and then I'll end here for this segment. Now we'll still get into more, so don't worry. But the one cool thing about the anxiously attached people, and yes, I'm fucking biased because this is me, but we are highly empathic people. I truly believe that if we did like a test, and maybe they have already and you all know about it or can point me to some research that might be interesting, but I truly believe that anxiously attached people are highly empathic. And the reason it would make sense to me if that was the case, that like all empathic people have like an anxious attachment style predominantly, or at least predominantly through their life, that it's because we had to learn at a very young age to be able to predict our primary caregivers' moods, behaviors, and like kind of prepare for what we're about to get, right? If we're about to get a parent that is going to be completely neglectful and not give two shits about the fact that we're in middle school and our boyfriend broke up with us and you failed a test and all you wanted to do was cry all day, and they don't give two shits about it, well, then you better be ready to have your shit mask on, right? Or your shit helmet on to know this isn't going to feel good, so don't even bother, right? Don't go to your parent in this moment to say, I need your help, because their lack of response is going to be far more hurtful than not asking them at all. Conversely, if you feel like your parent is in a good mood and you're having a bad day, then maybe you would go up to them and say, hey, my boyfriend broke up with me. I'm feeling really down about myself. And then you know that they're in a mood where they're going to swoop you up and give you kisses and tell you how fabulous you are, and that this guy doesn't know what he's missing and what have you. So we kind of have to, I also think that in the disorganized attachment style of childhood, that those are also highly empathic people that have experienced emotional, sexual, and physical trauma, because they need to know when their abuser is safe or not, and how to sort of navigate that water. So because we had to do it so much in childhood, not really knowing which kind of parent we're about to get, or if we're about to have an abusive parent, you can obviously tell if somebody's been drinking a lot, that probably not a good time to discuss your personal problems with them, or you're going to want to definitely be on your P's and Q's at this moment. So in essence, throughout our childhood, we've had to build our empathic muscles. Also, on a spiritual sense, I also want to point out that if we believe, which I do, but you don't have to, but I believe that we come in with soul contracts. And so if you feel like either the profession you're going to go into or whatever life lessons you need to learn, you need to come in empathic, then you would choose parents that are either going to be confusing because they can be warm one minute and cold the next, or you might pick abusive parents to teach you how to become empathic and how to then have this beautiful skill where you can read people, because my God, it makes great therapists and great nurses and great caregivers and great first responders if you can put your feet in somebody else's shoes and actually know what they're feeling, feel the vibe of a room, feel the vibe of a person, even if they're not giving out external cues. It's a fucking superpower, but my God, you have to suffer. I truly believe you have to suffer a lot to get that superpower. And so, even though I want to believe that we are like not the boys, fuck, those superheroes. We're watching The Boys right now, and those superheroes are awful. But the other one that I like is the Umbrella Academy. So I don't necessarily believe that. I think that we're born with some gifts, but I think when it comes to empathy, we also choose very difficult childhoods so that we can actually develop that empathy much deeper. Okay, well, I think that's a great stopping point for part 2 of the adult attachment styles. My episode next week will be about your partner's attachment style and some behaviors to look out for to be able to determine which type of attachment style they are, and how I truly believe that can relate to the twin flame versus soulmate relationship. And I think that will be a fun little conversation. May only be a one-parter for next week for finishing up attachment. May need to take 2 episodes like this one. But bear with me. I hope you guys are enjoying this. It's a little bit different. Sorry that it's a little heady at first, but I'm hoping that my fucked up stories brought a little light and levity to it. Maybe some relative, like, understanding beyond just the terms, but like some stories to kind of help bring it to life. But anyway, all right, folks, I think y'all are great, and I really appreciate the love and support you've been giving through this podcast and through Instagram. All of it has been so helpful to make me feel like I'm not alone and that I'm not crazy for doing this podcast, because sometimes it can be hard to put myself out there. But luckily, when I'm talking, I'm right now just talking to a room with my dogs in it, and so I often forget that there are a few people listening. So anyway, take care, and I will check y'all next time. Good night. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for your love, support, and continuing to listen to my podcast. If you feel called, I would really appreciate you to subscribe to my podcast and rate it and write a review. When you do that, it helps to put my podcast so that more people can get access to it and know about the podcast. Feel free to share it with anyone that you think might benefit from some of these conversations that we're having. And please be sure to follow me. Primarily, I'm on Instagram at the_intuitive_psychologist_111. I know it's a mouthful. I had to set myself apart from all the other people that kind of had similar names, so I apologize for that. On my Instagram, I not only talk about a lot of the things that I talk about on the podcast, gives you some tips and advice for mental health issues. Every Wednesday, I'm doing a live meditation. The specific time will be to determined, but probably either late afternoon or early evening, Wednesdays Pacific time. And I'm also occasionally on TikTok at Intuitive Psych. You can also email me at intuitive.psych.111@gmail.com. Feel free to email me with any questions, comments, any stories that you'd like to share. And hopefully in the very near future, I will be able to start providing spiritual services, because I'm going to manifest that. So if you want to get on the list so that once I get my life sorted on that and get the logistics sorted out so that I can provide spiritual services across state lines, please email me there. If you're in the state of California and you would like to have some work within the spiritual psychology realm, please email the Gmail account and let me know that you heard about me through the podcasts, and I will be happy to give you a discounted rate if you mention that you heard me on the podcast. And I'd love to work with you guys. All right. Take care, and I love you all. Stay safe, and remember, you are the light.